we will go ahead and start with a roll call, please.
Mayor Dexter?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Carr?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Present.
Councilmember Hodgson?
Good evening.
Councilmember Miller?
Here.
Councilmember Schwab?
Here.
Councilmember Suggs?
Here.
Manager West?
Present.
Attorney Bloor?
I'm here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you can please stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. Are there any late items from staff?
Mayor and Council, no late items from staff this evening.
Okay. Are there any late items from council? Okay, I will just, I was just gonna let folks know if people are watching or listening, because we've had a lot of emails and communication over the last week or so about the ALRP cameras. And so I just wanted to let people know that I had requests from more than one council member, and discussion about that with a presentation will be on the agenda for the next meeting, the 17th of February. So if you're here about that issue, you're welcome to speak at the second public comment period. And I just wanted people to know that that is coming, because there was enough interest. So, all right, then we will move on to public comment. And give me just one moment. Okay. Thank you for noting the topic and recognizing the second public comment period. I didn't see the notes on here. So if you are joining us virtually, now is the time to raise your hand for public comment if it's for an item on tonight's agenda. And I will go to council chambers first, and then online it's easier to just do one. So we will get started in council chambers, and the first person on the list is Nancy Steffens. Just a reminder, if you can state your name and whether or not you're a resident, and then if you're in council chambers, the lights on the lectern will keep track of your time for you. So go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, my name is Nancy Steffens. I'm a Port Angeles resident, and I want to give a couple opinions, one about item I2, and then a general thank you for something that you have helped me put into place here. I understand that item I2 will concern whether homeless people will be allowed to camp within PA city limits. I support the staff recommendation contained in your packet, which says to address the broader citywide issues of camping and sanctioned encampments, council as a whole should weigh in on these important matters after the legislature adjourns, to provide clear legislative direction to the city manager through a work session to be held April 7th, 2026. I think it makes sense to put off any decisions regarding sanctioned encampments within city limits until after we see what the state legislature approves or disapproves with regard to homeless encampments. Being homeless is not a crime, and I know you all know that. Treating the homeless as criminals does not help resolve their homelessness, but it will increase costs to the city and detract from what our law enforcement personnel should be doing, which is preventing crime. Public defenders would have to be provided and paid for by the city if homeless folks are arrested for camping in unauthorized areas. We need to designate an approved campground, and we have not done so. That is on the city. Consultation with the city's housing partners needs to take place between now and April 7th to come up with a real plan, but we won't know what the state will allow until after March 12th. So please vote yes to put off decision-making about this issue until the April 7th meeting. In addition, though, I do want to publicly thank the City of Port Angeles for supporting my efforts to bring Nesterly's home sharing program here to allow a bigger share of our population to have affordable places to live through home sharing. The goal is to prevent any more of our seniors from becoming new homeless people due to lack of income to maintain their homes, pay their mortgages, or property taxes. I would appreciate the city's help, however, to encourage homeowners associations to change their boilerplate CCR language. These CCRs refer to single-family inhabitants as the only people approved to live in those houses, and that needs to be changed for home sharing to flourish here. 3 of the people on my list who wanted to be home sharing hosts have since told me they can't because they live in owners associations with that kind of language. I am writing a letter to my own homeowner association leadership urging them to change that language. I would welcome a city-sponsored event that could bring representatives of all the HOAs together so I could talk to them about this, or at least a list of all the contacts for the HOAs so I can send out my letter to all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy.
And two of you folks weren't here when I talked about this in June, so I brought handouts for Mr. Hodgson and Mr. Hamilton.
As long as they're the same, they can just go to them and the others are already in the packet. I'm going to claim ignorance here and make a jump that House Bill 2489 is the one that was referenced. Okay. In that case, Ellen Adams.
Hi, my name is Ellen Adams. I'm a resident of Port Angeles. I moved here 3 years ago and I live on the west side. To get to and from my home, I go up 18th, past the Serenity Shelter daily. And when I first moved here, it was winter, so I didn't really know what the shelter was about too much. There weren't a lot of people out and about. But that summer, it was pretty eye-opening what was going on around the shelter. There were campers, cars, RVs, tents, people sleeping on the ground, on both sides of the roads, on the sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk with dogs, with all garbage and all of their belongings. And they would wander out in the street, and on 2 occasions, I almost hit someone. And I did make a complaint to the police department. There were a few things done at that time. Again, winter came, things got better. The next summer, worse. So I complained again, brought up a lot of particular issues with open drug use, multiple other things, and concerns. And that's not just me, that's my entire neighbor. I live in a 55 plus community. Majority of us are in our late 60s all the way up into our 80s. And many of them have lived there for 20 or 30 years and seen the deterioration just coming and going there. So fortunately, the city of Port Angeles made major changes this last year and cleaned up the area and put up signs to keep people from camping and parking along the street, and it has been much safer and much better. In my community, I live on a bluff, and we would have some of the folks from the shelter area wander down into our community, which is unsafe for some of our older residents. We've had things go missing, not going to say they did it, but they did. Or I'm not going to say homeless people did it, but we did have things go missing. We had one person who got into a confrontation with a resident, wound up taking a rock and throwing it through one of the for sale units. And police were called and had to subdue that person and take them. But big changes I've seen, and my concern, and I only just saw this a few days ago, is that by not allowing our local government to continue to do the things that they're doing, which I think you're doing a really good job now, of trying to address both sides of the issue, of trying to address that, yes, we need to look after people and provide housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Doherty.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mike Doherty. I'm a resident of Port Angeles. I have 2 items. One, I'd like to see the city consider a pause on the plan that was talked about in the paper to look at a future use of the old fire hall. The fire hall, the Carnegie, Lincoln School, vacant city property.
Are your items on tonight's agenda?
That's not my main point, but
Okay, because
so
go ahead.
I think the city should pause and look at other future uses of some of those properties, but particularly Lincoln School. And the Carnegie may have a transition when the new hotel is built downtown for the tribe. We just don't know. So pausing and getting, as I suggested a couple of years ago, I think I appeared 4 times lobbying a little about the future of Lincoln School site. The state SHPO office, Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, the McMiniman family, people who are experienced in the field could be invited to come to town after the session's over probably, and give the city some thoughts on the private development of the fire hall, but also some other things around town that could use some outside advice. My second item is Lincoln School. Anytime the North Olympic...
Mike, I don't think that is on tonight's agenda. So it would be, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but our first public comment period is only for items on the agenda. And then the second public comment period is the other things. And unless I'm missing it, it's what you're talking about is not on the agenda.
Okay.
So if you
I
can
just wanted
wait.
to package it as an affordable building site, which if they
Right.
list it for sale, it may be never an option if it's
So
full.
if you want to, we would love to hear more about that at the second public comment period.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Stephen Paleo. We wrote Steve here, so is it, okay. That's why,
You knew I had something to say. It's funny. Thanks, Kelly. All right. I'm sure most of you guys received my email. Stephen Paleo, you guys know I'm a homeowner here in Port Angeles, both within and outside of the city limits here. I'm here to speak in opposition of the proposal to permanently divert 12% of the lodging tax fund and apply that to staff administration costs. Let me start by reminding the council that, city staff do not run tourism programs here. They don't operate events. They don't design marketing campaigns. Along with the LTAC committee, they organize and approve awards, and then they process the receipts of those people that are actually, bringing tourists to our community. So when city staff compares, this proposal to so-called normal grant administration costs that range between 15 to 30%, that comparison just simply doesn't hold. That percentage would apply to organizations that are actually operating programs. That's not what's happening here. So I want to talk about how we got here. Last year, the LTAC committee was correct in denying the entire amount the city staff was proposing, approving only the portion that they got the prior year. However, instead of coming back with a better supported, more defensible request at the next LTAC funding cycle, city staff chose a different route. They chose to circumvent, to go around LTAC committee and come directly to city council to try to hard code a permanent transfer. That's not transparency, that's avoidance. Second, the numbers themselves really speak for themselves here. In 2025, the city said it took about 587 hours, $55,000 to administer the LTAC fund. Now they want to raise that by about 140%. For the record, lodging taxes were up 3% last year. They're up 6% in the last 2 years. This is absolutely not justified. Now, the only thing that really changed in 2025 is that the program, the LTAC committee itself, it was really widely acknowledged as just being internally dysfunctional. And that's what required a lot of extraordinary staff time. That was a mess that required fixing in 1 year. That's not something that's going to happen every year going forward. So to try to set that standard today, I think is wrong. Look, when we want to talk about industry norms, I actually spoke to some CFOs who received some grants. Department of Commerce charges a 2.5% administrative fee. Washington Building for the Arts Program charges a 3% fee. Again, these are more pass-through type grants that have an administration-only fee in the 2 to 3% type range. And you guys know I did talk to directors of finance at Walla Walla and Pullman and Ellensburg and Leavenworth, and many of these companies, or many of these cities don't even charge an administration fee. So to me, this is not a common practice. It's wrong to suggest that it is, especially at the magnitude. And really what bothers me the most is that everyone involved knows this. And that brings me to my last point here, and it's really the culture this proposal reflects. That 12% is not an industry norm. It's demonstrably false. I'm just going to finish here. That staff proposal was less than honest. It wasn't justified, and it circumvented the LTAC committee. These are not the types of things that I want to see. And quite frankly, it speaks to the integrity of City Hall. And so I was a little disgusted with that. I hope that we can find a better solution to solve this. Thank you.
thank you. Kelly, go ahead. Or rather, come on up.
Good
And then you can
evening.
go ahead.
Good evening, Council. I wanted to state clearly that I fully support everything that Stephen just laid out. The 12% diversion is not justified. It bypasses the LTAC process and it undermines public trust. Staff don't run tourism programs, and this proposal reframes administrative work as something that it isn't. Prior year practice, not a sudden permanent increase, should guide this decision. Lodging tax dollars should support tourism and not become a convenient payroll offset. And I'm also here to speak on another agenda item, unlike last week. I wanted to speak about public safety and the ARC committee. I fully support the ARC model and strongly encourage adding broad public participation and including a real seat at the table. So you hear perspectives from residents, businesses, business groups, and service providers. And we need people at the table who will speak freely and expect real results. What I witnessed watching the Homeless Task Force Committee in December was, to me, kind of horrifying. Too often the conversation centered on how to navigate around HUD guidelines and how to keep grants flowing and how to preserve the status quo. What was missing was any meaningful discussion about how to actively lift people into temporary housing, workforce training, and long-term stability. That's why models like 4PA matter. They require, 4PA meaning, they require participants engage and improve and move towards becoming productive members of our community. And that kind of expectation and accountability is what truly restores dignity instead of just keeping them down in a terrible hole. We cannot ignore what is happening on the ground. The camping at the Health and Human Services building on 3rd, the ongoing issues at Safeway, people sleeping and using along the sidewalks, the dangerous encampments on the steep bluff, which I have already spoken to you about. This is just not sustainable. I hope you're reading, I've mentioned this before, I hope you guys are reading Facebook, Substacks, and neighborhood updates, because there are people that are just incensed about this and are giving real world experiences of what they've had to put up with every day. And we should not need an entire waterfront district Facebook page devoted to vagrancy, camping, theft, and disorder. Our community, point blank, is fed up. The public has spoken loudly on social media. This is a hot button issue and people are demanding attention. The community is not just frustrated, we're exhausted, and we're expecting the city to respond decisively. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know John wants to go because he came down and moved, sitting in the middle. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, John Ralston. I want to second everything that Steve said about the LTAC issues. I attended one LTAC meeting last year and listened to a couple of them online. I thought they were total disorganized chaos. When I look at the number of hours that you put together or somebody put together in a very nice promotional packet, I think they're excessive by a long shot. There's absolutely no reason why we need to spend or potentially spend $112,000 or some number like that. The other thing that's on this February 3rd memo under funding, if approved, et cetera, but the last sentence says, the LTAC will be holding a second round of funding where this adjustment will be considered. It sounds like you're making a decision tonight, but it sounds like this says LTAC is going to go before them. Under background and analysis, the second paragraph, recognizing that our community also expects a city act and fiduciary responsibility, et cetera, city staff requested. I thought the city staff will request and that this should go back before LTAC. Is this group going to be circumventing LTAC? That's how I read some of this stuff. There's absolutely no way that it should be costing the city $50,000 or a number that's $70,000 higher than what was originally approved to run and administer these LTAC funds. It's totally ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else in council chambers? Okay, we'll go to our online commenters, and we'll start with Jim Hagwood. And let me get my timer ready while we get you unmuted. Now I see Jim's hand is down, but he is muted. Jim,
I think I'm good now.
Yes.
Can you hear me now, Mayor?
So I'm going to start your timer. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, good evening. Jim Hagwood, lifelong resident of Port Angeles. Port Angeles Municipal Code 12.04.080 clearly states that camping on public property is unlawful. The ongoing lack of enforcement in city code has gone on long enough and has negatively impacted public spaces, neighborhood, and especially many local businesses. Environmental damage, public security, and safety are just a few of those impacts. I fully support the aligned response care team concept and the role of nonprofit organizations in providing outreach and services, particularly to leverage the great work being done by 4PA. Where would we be without their efforts today? I recommend that the City of Port Angeles voice opposition to House Bill 2489 as written currently. That's something we can do now because I don't believe that's in the favor of Port Angeles. Port Angeles can be compassionate and orderly at the same time. We can do better as a community, and city government must lead in this manner, not state government. I urge the council to be proactive on this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. We'll go to Ellen Menshew.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I'll go ahead and start your time.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Ellen Menshew, and I live in the county. I am wanting to fully support agenda item I2 and the recommendation of the staff to move this to a work session for the entire city council to weigh in on. Additionally, I hope that it will move forward into more public engagement to hear from members of the public and other organizations in the community that may be participants in trying to help mitigate the issues involving homelessness in the community. I don't think that homelessness in city limits or outside of city limits, its boundaries are irrelevant in the term of the unhoused and finding alternative solutions and finding proper shelter and resources for them. So I would just urge you to please vote in support of the staff recommendation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. We'll go to Lisa Decker.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, and I will go ahead and start your time.
Thank you. Lisa Decker, I live 8 miles east of Port Angeles, but I do most of my errands and shopping in Port Angeles. And I am simply asking that to approve the city staff recommendations for the ARC program, the ARC team, and to schedule a work session on April 7, which is after the legislative session ends. And I think this gives an opportunity to have a lot more discussion and public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, then we'll go to LC. And if you can state, I know you probably already heard me say if you can state your name and whether or not you're a resident. And
yes, this is Laurel Kripe, City of Port Angeles.
Go ahead, Laurel.
Okay, I just want to comment on along the same lines that the person right before me just did. That on the agenda item I2, I want to support the staff recommendation and see that be postponed, a discussion of that until the full council can be involved and after the legislation is over, and also to involve more voices in that conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Mimi, go ahead when you are. I will make sure I can hear you first. All right, you are unmuted, but I can't hear you. We'll try again. Are you there? I mean, you're obviously there, but I don't know, but we can't hear you. You might need to, well, you've spoken at public comment recently, so your WebEx should be looking at the right microphone unless you've changed. But that's sometimes what's going on. We're going to try again. All right, still no luck. Can you hear us, Mimi? Or can we hear you? Guess we can't. Let's go to the next person and we'll come back and try Mimi again before we move on. So we'll go to Susie Blake and then try Mimi again.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Susie Blake, Port Angeles resident. I second what Ms. Johnson and Mr. Haywood said about L2. I've written to you all about this many times. I only heard back from very few of you. You need to stop gaslighting the public about what's going on. Those of us who live and work and walk in this neighborhood every day know these are drug and crime camps. There may be unhoused people there, but they are drug camps. Let's call them what they are. Every day that you choose to do nothing, more assaults, more rapes, more theft, more crime, more narcotics trafficking happens on our streets in our neighborhood. You're turning our neighborhood into a food desert because it's not safe to go to the grocery store. The health department parking lot is an active drug use scene every weekend. Stop gaslighting the public. There's no reason you can't continue to let the police force do and the code enforcement do what they have compassionately and legally and ethically done to continue working on this situation. You've been going around in circles about this the entire time I've lived here. Stop gaslighting. Stop pretending this is just a homeless situation. We see what's happening with our own eyes. Face the truth and deal with it. There's no reason you can't all continue to work on this issue. You act on state and federal issues while legislation is ongoing all the time. So your excuse is lame and weak. Stop gaslighting the public and do something. Every day that you do nothing, more people's lives are ruined, more women are raped, more humans are sex trafficked, more houses are robbed. Stop gaslighting the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. All right, we'll try Mimi again. No, she's not there. I don't see her now. Yeah. Okay. She's not on the list anymore. So we'll move on and hope that if she has something she wants to share, she can come to the second public comment period. All right. Let's do consent. And then what I'd like to do is we have Melissa Williams here from Faro to do a presentation on the Marine Discovery Center project. And so I'd like to move her up after consent. So we'll do consent and then give her the opportunity to present to us. And then we'll go on with the rest of the agenda, if that's all right with everyone. Is there anything anyone would like to add to consent? Drew?
I'll just go down one by one, so that way you guys can tell me yay or nay.
Okay.
But I like to do I2, Align Response and Care ARC Team, approve staff recommendation.
Anyone opposed to that? Amy, go ahead.
Definitely opposed to that.
Okay.
I would like I4, Permanent Committee Liaison, approve staff recommendation.
Any opposition to that? Okay.
And then J1, lease extension agreement with the Port of Port Angeles, approve, authorize, and allow.
Any opposition to that? Okay. Anything anyone else would like to add? Go ahead.
Drew didn't mention it, so I'm not sure if he has comments, but I'd also like to add I3, the ad hoc committee appointment committees.
Any opposition to that? Okay. Go ahead.
I did think perhaps we wanted to also talk about an alternate assignment there.
I think we're okay. I think we're okay. I guess that's not a council decision. That's my thought. All right. So do you want to leave it off? Okay. Okay. If you're okay with it, we'll put it on consent. Anything anyone would like to pull from consent? Okay, then I will read the consent agenda. The minutes of December 16th, let me start over. The minutes of December 16th, 2025, January 6th, 2026, January 20th, 2026, and January 27th, 2026. Expenditure report from January 10th, 2026 to January 23rd, 2026 in the amount of $3,646,281.72. Light operations material purchase electric meters. Waterfront trails repairs contract SVC 2022-59, final acceptance. Accepting the salmon recovery through local planning grant number 26-63117-005. The ad hoc committee appointment committees for 2026 to 2027, permanent committee liaison, and the lease extension agreement with the Port of Port Angeles. Any comments, questions, or a motion?
Yeah, I do have a comment on one of those items.
Okay, go ahead.
Just want to confirm with council, we will go ahead and re-advertise those positions for which we didn't receive sufficient number of applicants. We'll get those back out on the street to ensure that we can get timely appointments made.
All right, sounds good. Any other comments or questions? All right, how about a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, we got lots of seconds tonight. All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read. Anyone opposed to the motion, please state your opposition. All right, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right, I am going to introduce Melissa Williams this evening. I've had the pleasure of working with Melissa on the Faro board as one of my council assignments. I'm an honorary member. I don't count toward quorum and I cannot vote, but have been on the committee since I started on council, so for 8 years, and have been through the discussion of our building and what are we going to do, and I'm really excited to have her here tonight to give us an update on the Marine Discovery Project. And we'll let you say a few words, and then while Carrie's getting your presentation up.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Melissa Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Faro Marine Life Center and have been so since 2014. I came to this community from the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago and was brought here specifically to work on plans for a new building for the Faro Marine Life Center. I'm just really gratified that we're finally at this point. We had started our conceptual design process back in 2019 and anticipated launching our capital campaign in 2020. You can understand why we maybe held that back. So we officially launched it in 2023, and I'm excited to tell you that we have raised over $24 million for this project in partnership with the NOAA Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary. So I'm just here today to give you a quick snapshot of our progress and to issue an invitation. So the big idea for the new building is that water connects us all. Everyone that lives here on the peninsula, which is the true focus of the interpretive exhibits inside this facility, we all depend to some degree on our waterways and the healthy use of our waterways, whether that's tourism or economic development, jobs, our recreation opportunities, a lot of our drinking water, our food and subsistence, fishing and crabbing. All of these things are critical to every single member of our community across the peninsula. Go ahead. And therefore, we have partnered with the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary, which is over 3,100 square miles off of Washington's western coast. And we together are going to be interpreting essentially the northwest of that entire peninsula. So the Strait Coast as well as our Pacific coast, from the mountains to the deep ocean. So including our watersheds and what makes our coastal shelf so unique and special, and why it allows so many whales and other migratory animals to come up into our area and be so productive for our biodiversity. Go ahead. I want to show you a quick site image. This is taken from the observation tower at the Pebble Beach Park. The red, it's not really a square, but the red shape is where the new building will go. And go ahead. It will be part of the Arts, Science, and Culture campus, along with the Field Arts and Events Hall and a planned building from the Lower Alwa Column tribe. We will be on the western edge of this property that shares a boundary with the park on two sides, and with obviously the city street on third side. And we have been working diligently with the city's departments to make sure that all of our planning is in alignment with code and makes sense with the use of the park and the development of that entire waterfront redevelopment. Go ahead. You can see some of that work here, such as creating more accessible pathways into Pebble Beach Park, doing some native plant landscaping so that the bushes that are there now are not a physical barrier to access into the park, creating more seating options along the waterfront trail, and some additional changes to the streetscape in terms of easy and safer parking, crossing to get from the one side of Front Street to the other. Go ahead. We, in terms of process, have just finished our schematic design of our project, and we just last week have selected our contractor for our pre-construction services. So we're excited about that, and we're moving into design development once that contracting is completed. So we are very aggressive on our time frame and maybe a little hopeful, but we're going to do our darndest to get this thing built as quickly as possible. We do have about $18 million in funding that comes from the NOAA agency, and some of that we're spending now, but others of it we want to make sure we can spend as rapidly as we can. Go ahead. This is what I'll call a schematic conceptual design. It is pretty close to the final. The finishes are not yet determined, so please don't take the color or the outside of the building as settled. But what I will tell you is that we will have a giant, life-sized humpback whale Big Mama sculpture in the window, so that everyone that's going by knows exactly what our building is for, and that folks see it as a beacon for coming in and checking out what's going on our coast. Go ahead. Inside, we have more than 8,000 square feet of exhibits. By comparison, current Faro is about 1,200 square feet of exhibits. We also will have 3 classroom spaces, 2 indoor and 1 outdoor classroom. And that is about 2,400 square feet. And by comparison, the current Faro is about 600 square feet of classroom space. So we'll be tripling our capacity for visitors as well as our capacity for education programs. And we're also expanding our animal collection. Go ahead. So I'll just do some quick walkthroughs here so you get a sense of what the building experience will be like. I mentioned that whale in the lobby. We'll also have, this is our free community lobby, so we'll also have exhibits about the marine sanctuary and more tourism things like where are the best tide pools in our area, how do I go at the right tide, what if I need accessibility options, etc. And we are going to be doing an interactive all about whales of our region and their migratory patterns. Go ahead. We have what I think is pretty unique for an aquarium. We have an entire exhibit all about us. So this will have a really cool interactive digital table with several themes on it, including maritime heritage, current marine trades and working waterfront, as well as some nod to all of our tribal members and tribes that are here on the peninsula. Go ahead. Biodiversity, this is where you'll see all the species that are commonly found at Faro now, including our invertebrates, a touch tank, a massive kelp forest exhibit, and a revamped and revitalized giant Pacific octopus exhibit. Go ahead. The new collection expansion will extend to seabirds. So we'll have tufted puffins, common murres, long-tailed ducks, and harlequin ducks, which are all species that live here locally part of the year, and which hardly anyone realizes. So we are working with some local folks and our professional colleagues at the Seattle Aquarium, the Alaska Sea Life Center, and other accredited facilities to make sure that we can transfer some of the species that have been raised in those facilities here to the peninsula. Go ahead. We also want to make sure that people see themselves in the future. So we'll have a big piece on ocean science and also ocean stewardship. But the science piece is such a critical tie-in to the education center and marine trades that we don't want that to get lost just by saying, oh, we have animals. Like there's a purpose for all of this. Go ahead. I mentioned the Learning Center already, so we can skip that one. And then the thing I will note, however, is that if you've ever stood on the city pier and heard a pump turn on and kind of rumble underneath the wood there on the pier decking, that's the pump that services our seawater and has been for almost 45 years sitting underneath the pier. We are doing business redundancy, business security, and animal security, biosecurity, and bringing all of that stuff inside. So we have to have a professionally developed life support system to make sure all of the animals that we just discussed, no matter what happens if the power goes off or there's something that happens in the harbor, we have all the safety for them that we need. Go ahead. Oh, is that the new one? Okay, I guess it didn't have it on there. Sorry, I thought I had it. Anyway, so my invitation to you is we have gotten so far along in this project that we will be doing a ceremonial groundbreaking. That will take place on Wednesday, April 8th. The ceremonial piece will take place at 3 p.m. and then we'll be hosting a free community party from 4 to 6 that'll take place inside the field hall. So we have lots and lots of new stuff to look at and lots of our partners that have been developing this project along with us, and we would be happy to see you there. Thank you. Oh, I guess I should say for questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. I may have seen most of those slides before, but exciting to see it in a public setting. Are there comments or questions from council? Drew, go ahead.
Mine's super easy. If you haven't already, you will email us that information, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Navarro.
Well, it's very exciting to see this really, it feels like, come to fruition. And I think, yeah, what an exciting project and benefit to our community. I think I have 2 questions. The first is in the map that you showed with the marine sanctuary, and then, Port Angeles, where this Marine Science Center is. I mean, I, like probably many other people, have been to the Seattle Aquarium, and then I know that Port Townsend may have some marine facilities. But can you talk about how this, or sort of like where this facility and Faro and generally even today kind of fits in with a more regional, like what I'm asking is like, where are
what's the
nearest
differentiator?
Well, and we'll really end like how far away are we from our next closest aquarium?
Sure. So we're literally an hour away from Port Townsend. They have had their own set of challenges with their buildings, including closing their aquarium exhibits due to the state taking out the pier. And so as we have gone forward, we have really leaned into the Pacific coast as being a unique interpretive opportunity for us. This is the place that we live, and we want to talk about that to a much larger degree than we think most other facilities are doing. So obviously, Port Townsend, I will just say, if you put us both together right now, we are open more hours to the public than they are. And we, and I don't mean that in a we're better way, but we just are open to the public more hours. And we have a different sort of pricing structure. So for Faro, if you have a SNAP or EBT card, you can actually get into the facility for free. We're part of the Museums for All national program. We also partner with the library. So if you don't qualify for SNAP, you can actually, anyone that has a library card can go check out a free family pass from the library. So we have some different community investments, let's call them. And I think as far as it relates to the potential expansion of activities. Clearly, the Education Center will allow us to do a lot more programming, but we also are partnering with other research and stewardship organizations. And part of our transition will include strategic planning that will lift up our research options. So right now we do a lot of community science programs. For example, we respond to marine mammal stranding over 80 miles of the Strait Coast. We work on harmful algal bloom monitoring at City Pier. And I think we will be able to actually get into actual research, especially concerning the animals that'll be in our care, such as the birds, right? So that's a really charismatic animal. We are seeing a decline locally due to a lot of different factors, and partnering with, say, Jamestown Natural Resources or other, the state or other researchers to try to understand that better and apply funding to those kinds of research projects.
Thank you. I just have one other question. Sure. And this, you can say like, it's too soon, we're keeping it a secret, and that's fine. But in some of the design models that you shared, am I wrong to say that some of it looked a little field hall-esque? Really where I'm going with this is knowing that it's sort of a campus, how cohesive of the design element, or is it going to be something that really leans into its own design?
Yeah, that's really difficult for me to answer right now because we haven't gone through the finishes stage in design development. But I will say this, it will be new. And we don't have a lot of new things in our community. And so therefore, because Field Hall is the most recent other new thing, I think we will draw a lot of comparisons to that. But we are not intentionally trying to architecturally or otherwise resemble the Field Hall. We're trying to be our own facility that speaks to our own content and our own experiences. But we definitely want to look nice because the Field Hall looks nice. So we'll try to match them on that level.
Thank you. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious. I work at the high school, and Kara Mathis is up there, and I'm wondering if, when this new building is built, if you guys have started thinking about ways of bringing in students from the high school and middle school, and like they kind of do with the arts at the Field Hall. Like, have you started talking about programming and partnerships with classrooms and other educational entities in our region? And could you share a little bit about that if you have?
Yeah. So I think the rubber's going to meet the road with that strategic plan that's coming in the fall. But we have involved Kira, and we have a great, I don't know if you know, but a ton of the students from the environmental club volunteer at Faro now. So we actually can go right to the source and talk to a lot of those students about what they're interested in and what they think would compel them, right, to participate. And we certainly will be working with as many teachers as we can get, which is kind of our MO at this point too, to meet their teaching needs. Right. So trying to figure out what it is that's going to make the most sense. And I will just put a plug in for the return of the underwater robotics after school program. We used to run this program all over the town, actually, in all these different places. But because we couldn't ever stay in one place because they would, we were essentially leasing, we had to discontinue the after school portion of the program. This will allow more programs like that are STEM in nature, but also apply to any student in any school, whether they're homeschooled or private school or public school, to attend a program with an after school focus. So there'll be a lot more opportunities.
Thank you. Latricia, go ahead.
Thanks for the presentation, and I'm excited about this new facility. I'm an advocate for protecting what we have because it's, one, cheaper to protect what we have than go in and restore it after the fact. But one of the things I was wondering about the layout of the site, one of the things we entities do doesn't matter who you are, is you build to a certain footprint. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, you're like, gosh, we need more space. Is there any area that's the footprint that is set aside for growth in the future, say 10 years or 15 years down the road? So that's one question. I have another one after that.
Okay. The very shortest answer to that is no, and you've uncovered one of our few fatal flaws. There really isn't enough space to plan for expansion and to run the size of facility we need to keep the budget on track. So most of the budget comes from ticket sales and program fees, and we need to make sure that we have enough compelling experience. So we have literally stuffed this building full of things to make sure that that happens. I will just put a qualifier on that to say, if for some unforeseen reason, the middle part of that shared campus never gets developed, we do have an option to potentially expand that way. We're all hoping it gets developed, but we have a little bit of a backdoor in case it doesn't.
The other question, you might have probably already answered this, and maybe I'm hoping that maybe there's a different answer for it. I know that when you're doing education, especially like wet outside, and you're right there at Pebble Beach, and I do not know the slalom word for that beach, and I apologize. I wished I could say it.
I could see it in my head.
I know.
I tried pronouncing it a million times.
So I feel like I don't honor my own culture by not knowing that word. But one of the things out at the Dungeness Nature Center that we did is create an outdoor education facility so that kids weren't tracking all of that stuff back in. Is that something to consider at this site, an outdoor where you have rolled up doors and you have drainage and tables and kids can carry all their stuff outside and not take it in? And
so the good news is we have an outdoor classroom built into this plan. We also are talking with parks as well as Sir Optimus, because there's a lot of park between this new building and Valley Creek Estuary, for example. So there isn't anything that couldn't say later on we could add another station, if you will. But we do have the outdoor classroom planned in specifically for all of that wet, muddy.
Okay, well, I know you're an expert at what you do, but if you have never gone out to the nature center to check out their outdoor.
Oh yeah, I've been in a program.
Okay, all right, good.
It's great.
All right, good. Again, I just want to thank you for all your hard work. Can you kind of give us a quick update where you're at with the funding?
Yeah, so we just crested 24 million. We're working towards a construction goal of 30. As we go through design development, you sort of learn new pricing for things. And so we don't think it'll stay there. We anticipate it'll get higher, but we're continuing to, go after our major donors and write our grants and corporations. And so we'll be essentially fundraising the remaining $6 to, let's say, $10 million over the next 2 years before we open.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions. This, last one, oh my goodness, why it's there and then it just goes away just like that. You talked about seawater. Is the equipment that you have in there, does it create its own type of salt water, or are you taking some from the ocean through?
We'll be creating our own in this facility.
All right.
There's just as an aside to that, not that you need to get into the nuances of state permitting, but currently if you have an open flow system, there are certain things you are prohibited from collecting under the scientific and education collection permit, sea stars being one of them. So one, we want to invest in the individual animals that we already have. We've brought on a volunteer veterinarian. We've been doing a lot of animal health care upgrades so that every life sustains as long as it possibly can with us. But then also we want to control for biosecurity. So for example, green crab larvae, sea star wasting, all of those things are potential risk for bringing species in if you have the kind of system we have now. So this way we'll be able to have much more management of the health and safety of the animals and of our waterways.
You've thought of everything. Thank you.
Try.
All right. Any last comments or questions?
Maybe for us, Kate, Mayor Dexter.
Yeah.
with the increase in foot traffic, have we thought of the need to have another bathroom closer to this facility, similar to what the types of bathrooms that we've installed? I mean, especially if we're going to have an increase of footprint in this area and it's moving away from the pier to this location.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think we could certainly make a note for a future mention of it as we think about our bathroom replacement program or something along those lines. Staff, do you want to jump in on that at all?
Mayor and Council, we do not have an additional restroom planned west of the current location of the Portland Loo, but that's not impossible. And as you know, the capital facilities plan is coming up very soon. In March, we'll be actively working on that.
So write it down, because otherwise we're all going to forget. All right. Thank you very much for coming. Good to see you, Anna. And we'll look forward to another update at some point within the next year, I suppose. All right. Let's just take a break and come back and pick up at H1. So we'll take a 5-minute break and see you back here then. All right, thank you all. We will go ahead and get started again. We will just, I think, pick up where we left off, and that is at H1, that's lodging tax, and I'm going to go to Calvin to kick that off.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. You'll find this information starting on page H1 of your packets. We're very excited this evening and looking forward to clarifying a few clear misunderstandings and misconceptions about what is before you or is not before you tonight, and how that directly responds to your direction during the December 16th meeting. I also hope that regardless of the points of view, we can avoid name calling as well as impugning the motives of staff. I think we see that a lot in the other Washington and hope to avoid that here in this Washington. Tonight's resolution directly supports strategic focus area number 2, citywide resource optimization. And I'll now turn the presentation over to Natural Resources and Grants Administrator Courtney Bornsworth for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Mayor and Council, my name is Courtney Bornsworth, Natural Resources Associate Planner. This presentation is roughly 6 minutes, so I ask that you please hold your questions until the end. Thank you. Before we get into the recommendation before you tonight, I would like to spend a minute providing some context as to how the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee operates and the relationship with City Council. Every year, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meets to discuss the proposals received during the annual RFP cycle. The committee then evaluates the applications using a set criteria and meet to discuss their scores. The LTAC then makes a recommendation to City Council on funding. If City Council approves the committee's recommendation, contracts are drafted and vendors receive the amount that was approved by Council. City Council may also reject the recommendation made by the LTAC and send it back for further review. The bottom line is this: the LTAC is an advisory committee. All final decisions on the use of funds are made by City Council. Next slide, please. At the December 16th, 2025 City Council meeting, Council voted unanimously to adopt the recommendations from the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for 2026 funding and directed staff to bring to City Council prior to the next LTAC meeting a resolution to set policy for the LTAC that includes fully funding the administrative costs of lodging tax administration. Next slide, please. Following the December 16th, 2025 motion, staff prepared a resolution that formalizes council direction by updating the distribution of funds to support responsible program administration and oversight at 12%, or approximately $134,000 of the estimated LTAX budget in 2026, while reducing reliance on the city's general fund. In compliance with the requirements outlined in the RCW and Council's direction, staff have prepared and submitted a Round 2 application for the remaining $78,000 that will be discussed at the next LTAC meeting in March, where the LTAC will make a recommendation for the use of remaining available funds. That recommendation will then come back to City Council for final approval or rejection in April. Tonight's action is only focused on the first step in this process, which is adjusting the policy to allow for the allocation of a fixed amount of overhead expenses moving forward. To be clear, tonight's action will not actually amend the 2026 budget. This is only the first step in that process. Next slide, please. At the council budget workshop in the summer of 2025, it became clear that the city's 2026 budget was out of balance. As a result, the city manager's office asked every department to ensure there were no internal subsidies of the general fund in 2026. This prompted a change to the master fee schedule and led staff to perform a deep dive into the actual expenses associated with administering lodging tax funds. We appreciate the community members who pointed out the need to bring more transparency to the 2026 budget and to hold the city accountable for the use of public funds. Next slide. Prior to this year, staff had been requesting support for administering LTAX funds based on a business-as-usual model, resulting in a request that was artificially low. The city's 2026 LTAX application reflects a deeper dive into the actual administrative costs associated with managing, administering, and providing legal and financial oversight of these funds and vendor contracts. Staff strive to provide an excellent customer service experience, going above and beyond what is required of them. Staff are always available to answer phone calls, respond to emails, and hold one-on-one meetings with vendors at their direct discretion to ensure questions are answered and information is conveyed clearly. Additionally, staff work closely with our destination marketing contractor to ensure the city excels in strategic planning and tourism promotion, drawing in more visitors and enticing visitors to return often and stay longer. These efforts bolster the lodging tax fund over time, as we will see shortly. In 2026 alone, staff will be overseeing 36 contracts from the already approved Round 1 submissions and are currently preparing to send an additional 14 Round 2 applications for the committee to review prior to the March meeting. This could result in the management of 50 contracts this year, as opposed to the 31 that were managed in 2025. Next slide, please. Sorry, these graphs are a little hard to see on the screen. But for those who are visual learners, as you can see, staff are now managing significantly more contracts and funds than they were in years past. In 2015, for example, staff were managing 16 contracts and nearly $600,000 in awards. In 2020, the number of contracts dropped to 14, but staff were managing nearly $760,000 in awards. In 2026, if all Round 2 applications are ultimately approved by City Council, in addition to the currently approved budget, staff would then be managing nearly 50 contracts and over $2.1 million in awards. The sheer increase in funds and number of contracts now being managed clearly demonstrates the need for administrative and fiscal oversight by city staff. When combined with the oversight of the Visit Port Angeles contract, the contribution to the Olympic Peninsula Tourism Commission, and the excellent customer service staff strive to provide to all their vendors, is the rationale behind the proposed 12% for oversight costs. Next slide, please. If this first step is approved tonight and the LTAC supports this recommendation, then 12%, or roughly $134,000 in LTAX funds, will be dedicated to city staff oversight and administrative costs within the lodging tax program in 2026. These administrative costs are reasonable compared to other grant administrative practices where 15 to 30% have become common. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the LTAC will be reviewing the Round 2 funding requests, where staff will present the remaining amount of funds not approved in the earlier Round 1. The LTAC recommendation will be provided to City Council for final approval or rejection in April. Next slide. At this time, staff is recommending that City Council, 1, pass the resolution adopting the updated 2026 Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures, and 2, authorize the city manager or their designee to administer the work plan and procedures and to make minor modifications. Thank you for your time.
All right, don't go too far because we might have questions. Are there questions from council?
Make a motion.
Okay.
To pass the resolution adopting the updated 2026 Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures and authorize the city manager or their designee to administer the work plan and procedures and to make minor modifications.
Second. All right, before we discuss the resolution, I will read it quickly. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Angeles, Washington, amending Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures by adding new funding disbursement guidance to include lodging tax fund oversight and administration. Latricia, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I want to thank the staff for their information here where you talk about the expanded workload where it's from 2015 on how the city has had to, increase their effort to maintain the applications, manage, working with the advisory committee. It's a lot of work. And when you're moving from, the just over 500,000 up to $2 million, again, we want to make sure our staff have the dedicated time to manage those grants, manage those funds, and to work with the advisory committee, and also the trainings that the staff has also provided to the applicants. 50 applicants, that's a lot of applications to be managing. And it's not, it's staff, it's our accounting staff that also has to manage those. We also have a requirement that all contracts go through our legal department. And the other thing too is, again, our general fund, there's so much competition for our general funds that we have to stop subsidizing programs because of how the general funds can only be utilized. I mean, we use them for Parks and Rec, for fire, for police. And just tonight, we've had this discussion about addressing homelessness. And how do we do that? And working with code enforcement, working with our police department. We need to free up those general funds so we can focus on those other issues that do impact our city. And it's not like that I'm aware of that applications are being turned away. That we're saying, no, we're not going to fund these projects. I could be wrong on that. But we are funding potentially, as identified tonight, up to 50 or at least an additional 14 more in the second round. So I think 12% is a fair request. I've seen de minimis amounts at 15% with state and federal grants. I think 12% is lower than this de minimis amount that federal and state grants state is a minimum amount. So I think 12% is a fair amount, and I fully support this so that so the taxpayers are not subsidizing the lodging tax programs. The funding that comes into lodging tax, yes, it's sales tax, but it's from our tourists, people who don't live in our community. They come to visit, and they're utilizing all these other resources that we are paying for out of our general fund, like our fire and police and public our recreation, our parks and stuff. So we need to make sure we can fund those departments and also make sure that we're not subsidizing LTAC when they can afford to pay for administration and oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Latricia. Okay, we'll just go down the line. We'll go to John and then Amy.
Thank you, Mayor. So as is, I'm going to speak against this motion. I would prefer to see this tabled for a later day until April, sorry. And my main concern is simply from slide 8 on this presentation we just received that said LTAC will be reviewing the round 2 funding request where this adjustment will be considered, and the LTAC recommendation will be provided to City Council for final approval or rejection in April. I think it's premature to pass this resolution tonight if we're going to consider it anyway in April. I feel like going through the process satisfies a couple things. One, that we are in no way going to violate the 45-day requirement in the RCW for lodging tax. We are going to take a final vote in April anyway, so there's no point in passing this tonight. Let it go through its process. And we ensure the administration fee is tied to the actual route to work plan. I just feel like it's premature to pass this tonight as written. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Amy, go ahead.
Is there any response, or do you want me to just go?
If you'd like to, you can.
I will just say, as far as the legal issues go, and Attorney Bluer can assist me here, we've carefully reviewed this legislation. Again, this is important to remind Council, this is a legislation you all asked for, that you asked for to be acted upon before the next LTAC meeting, which is next month. Staff has done that. I believe Attorney Bluer has looked into any concerns that might have been raised regarding the RCW. And again, important as Ms. Borensworth said, if this does pass tonight, no dollar amount is actually changing hands. And I believe that's what the RCW is specifically focused on. What this does is set a policy for the consideration at the next meeting. And Attorney Bluer, if you could add or detract from what I just said, that'd be appreciated.
Bill, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So we have seen what has been written in a number of emails and some of the issues that have been raised there. And it is my opinion, after looking into this, that this is an appropriate resolution. Over the years, numerous questions have been raised about these statutes. First, let me just say this. So And it has been a struggle to achieve the right balance of consistency and practicality and fidelity to the statutory language. There are definitely gray areas in interpretation. In my position with the city, I've been struggling with that reality for over a decade. And so I would never criticize anyone who raises a question about the process or procedures that we're required to comply with to satisfy the legal requirements relating to LTAC funding. But in reviewing these, I note several things. Number one, the state auditor's office interprets the law to mean that the use of lodging funds, including for municipalities, are considered projects in support of tourism. So the actual work of the LTAC committee is one of those things that is entitled to support from LTAC funds, because that's what his whole primary function is, to increase tourism. And the state auditor has determined that that is an appropriate use of the funding. And so that MRSC also has written an opinion saying that the LTAC funds can be used for the administrative support of the LTAC committee functions in the city. So the process, it really seems like the question more tonight is, well, let me go back one step. In addition to having said that, the city has done this periodically numerous times in the past. So in the past, numerous occasions, the city has adopted a policy statement like this, similar to this, saying that the city council decides that at this point in time, we would like to see the LTAC funds allocated in to certain categories. That's been done in the past. The state auditor has never raised a question about it, the city council being able to do that. That does not constitute an action that triggers the 45-day period that is in the statute. That is something completely different. So the process, starting from tonight, the process is that the city will prepare an application for funding to the LTAC committee, the same as any other applicants. The LTAC committee will meet in March. The LTAC committee will make a recommendation to the city council as to which applicants should be funded and how much should be awarded to the applicant. The recommendation of the committee should be guided by the policy directions of the council, but they're not bound. The action tonight is not binding on the committee. So the committee in March will make its independent recommendation. It'll go back to the city council. The city council will either approve or reject the recommendation made by LTAC. If the city council approves the award to a recipient, the city, if it approves an award to the recipient, it may propose a different amount, and that must be sent back to the LTAC committee. That's the 45-day period that is being referred to. So it's not tonight that triggers the 45-day period. It would be something that happens sometime in March. After that, the city may adopt its proposed funding, and then there's a grant contract. And only at that time, when the grant contract is executed, does the actual grant become effective. So the process that I've just described will happen in the future, is not part of the action that you're taking tonight. And I believe that that process satisfies the requirements of the statute.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
All right, Amy. And then I got Drew down. Okay.
Thanks. I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. First, I want to respond and just say that I hope that staff never has to remind us to refrain from name calling. Thanks for the reminder, and I'm sorry that that had to come out. I also wanted to just acknowledge that we did get some emails with concerns on passing this. I want to just acknowledge and note that, at least in my inbox, none of those were from actual vendors or recipients of contracts, and I think that means something to me. Also want to appreciate that we actually, as a council, unanimously gave this instruction and the timeline. And so thank you for coming through on that. And I don't want to make any assumptions on Deputy Mayor Carr's second on this motion. But I do think that as the chair of LTAC, that support gives some weight as well. So all that being said, I plan to support this motion.
Thank you, Amy.
Point of clarification, yes. Former chair, but Mayor Dexter now has
Right, it is February. All right, Drew, go ahead.
So to speak opposite of how I typically do when we start talking lodging tax and funding, I'm going to currently vote against the motion because I actually had questions that I felt was germane to my opinion. However, we're not specific enough to the motion currently made to be able to ask them right now. So I am going to opt to vote against this. However, I will still send my questions to staff because I would still like answers to my questions just so I know more about the process. But that's where I'm at this time.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Navarra?
I certainly appreciate, well, first I want to say that, something that we had talked about at that meeting back in the fall was that at the time, LTAC wanted a little bit more clarity about exactly which positions were being funded in which capacity. And I thought that this memo was incredibly clear. And I really want to appreciate everybody on our staff for providing that. I think it was very helpful to see just how much time goes into administrating LTAC. As Councilmember Miller said, I have spent quite a lot of time with the fine folks who have been doing that work and, know how much time and effort there is put into it. One of the things that Courtney did not mention that I think is worth saying is those 50 contracts or 36 or whatever, that doesn't even include the marketing contracts that we all looked at, which there was also upwards of 30. Yeah, okay, I'm right about that. And not all members of LTAC participated in that process, but staff certainly did. I did. I know other members of LTAC did, though it was not the full body. And there is so much time and effort that goes into it. A very positive thing that I think has come out of the last couple of years in our administration of the LTAC program is an additional meeting where staff hold essentially an informational session for community members. And what this came out of was we were getting so many new applications, and the application at the time was a little trickier than it is now. Another great thing that's been known over the past few years by our staff. And folks, this is one of the few grant applications that community members apply to as some of their first grants. And it's fairly low barrier. And part of that is because of the work that staff does to make it low barrier and to provide information to folks and make it as easy as possible. And again, I'm not saying that there's not work to be done there, but I think we have taken some pretty substantial strides to make that an easier process for everybody. And if you missed that meeting, you can watch it online, just like all of our meetings. And I know that Ben and Courtney spend countless hours, as is documented in this memo, working with people, answering questions, and making sure that they really have all the best information they can to provide a good application to the committee, particularly for those folks who are literally applying for grants for the first time. I think that that's one of the great benefits of this program is that it's so easy to do. I will also say that the county's program, you have to physically turn in a hand-delivered application during business hours to the courthouse, like we're living like back in the 70s. And so again, so I just again really want to say that the ways that we are, I think, thoughtfully administering this program, I don't really think can be overstated. And again, while there might be some places where we can go, and I'm sure that Mayor Dexter will continue to have innovative ideas moving forward, that I really believe that our staff is trying to make this as easy as we can. Additionally, some of the processes that we've put into place have come out of Lodging Tax Committee recommendations, like a simplified application, like having I want to say new people, the training, that's where I'm going. Yeah, the training. Additionally, having legal review the applications that didn't happen historically. That is, I think, a very positive development and something that has really helped, I think, the LTAC committee as a whole know that we're on firm, solid legal ground. So I just want to elevate all of those things while we have that opportunity. I also think that it can be important to committees when we are able to identify the direction that council is interested in going in, regardless of whether or not that committee decides to agree with us. I think we've done this for many other committees over the years, is tell them, this is where we're going. This is what we'd like to do. In fact, we did that very same thing with LTAC in response to Field Hall just a few years ago. So this is not the first time that we have, as a council, contemplated sending a recommendation to a committee to invite them and let them know really where I think we're thinking. I think that also helps a committee. This committee is going to have 3 new members on it, Mayor Dexter and 2 new committee members, both of whom are ineligible to reapply. So there just will be 2 new people. And I think that especially sometimes for our new folks, I imagine it's going to be a difficult first meeting where you're funding folks for the first time, that I think it's very helpful to have some council direction in letting people know that this is a way that we would like to move forward. I also know that those committee members, all of our committee members, are smart and intelligent and thoughtful, creative people. And if they have other ideas, I'm sure that they will let them be known to us at that time. But I think that there's a lot of value in providing some guidance and being transparent about what our thought is as a body to our committees, particularly when there's an issue that I think has kind of a lot of weight and magnitude. I think it's valuable to be transparent about what we're interested in.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll take a turn. So I appreciate that I wasn't at the meeting and I have not watched the meeting, but it sounded like one of the big concerns from LTAC in the original request was, especially based on Navarro's comments, was a lack of clarity about what that increase was for. And I think this is very clear. I do think I want to reiterate that last year, I think it was just last year, it may have been the year before at this point, the 45-day process was, we got recommendations. The council did not like the funding request, didn't like the way the funding landed, and we sent it back for reconsideration, which has to happen in order for us to make a decision that is different. We have to give them an opportunity to reconsider. In this case, it will come back, and we had that unanimous council action. I think it's important that we are not using general fund dollars to subsidize this committee and the administration of the lodging tax. I understand that it is frustrating because administration isn't necessarily heads in beds, but it is facilitating the grants to get those heads in beds. And we have heard a lot tonight also about wanting more code enforcement and wanting more action on the part of police, and $135,000 is potentially, it's not an increase. I want to be clear when I say that it doesn't mean we're going to be able to do more. But if we continue to underfund the things that can fund themselves, then we're in a position of, do we need to not have as many? And I'm not interested in putting us in that position. And if statutorily this committee can pay for itself, then I think that is what needs to happen. I also want to, when I was first on council, we actually set specific policy guidelines. You will spend 30% on this, 25% on this, and we have backed away from doing that and have the committee be doing more of that themselves, which is fine, but I think there is precedent for council setting policy direction. And lastly, I want to say, as someone who works in a job where I process applications, they're not grants, but they are applications, and we do 5 info sessions for 1 application round, and I still spend more hours than probably even I'm guessing if I actually really kept track, answering people's questions about the application process, and then following up to say, hey, you're missing documentation. This is the wrong form. We need you to submit this one, because we want people to be successful in their application. And then once they get in, this is getting into the nursing program, I am also then following up multiple times to get documentation that is required. And so I feel like I have a particular, which I hadn't thought about, and actually makes me maybe qualified for this committee in a way that I hadn't considered, but I also think gives me some appreciation for the amount of time that it can take that other people can't see. And I appreciate that we are offering, I think it is really important that people have a fair shake at these funds. And so giving them as much opportunity to complete a solid application is time well spent as far as staff, in my opinion. So I am going to support the motion, and I guess I'll have the opportunity to talk about it again in March. Anyone else? All right, so we clearly don't have unanimous. So let me get my little ticket ready here. All right, so although, we do have a motion, yes. So let me reread the motion, sorry. Let me find it. All right, so we have a motion to pass the resolution adopting the updated 2026 Lodging Tax Advisory Committee funding work plan and procedures, and authorize the city manager or their designee to administer the work plan and procedures and to make minor modifications. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, so the ayes have it. And I'm just going to note that here for keeping track. Need to update my keeping track forms. They still have Council Members Schroman Warren and Councilmember Meyer. I just wrote in the right people. All right. Thank you all for your patience on that. Okay, that brings us to I2, another topic of interest this evening. And I am going to go to Calvin for that to kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. You'll find this information starting on page I1 of your packets. On January 20th, City Council adopted assignments for a variety of internal and external boards, committees, and commissions for 2026 to 2027. During the council's discussion on January 20th, several issues were raised for follow-up at tonight's meeting, including the Aligned Response and Care, or ARC team. The original goal of the ARC team was to ensure administrative alignment of operations by bringing together cross-functional decision makers to develop strategic citywide plans to assist unsheltered individuals to safe and designated facilities while also safeguarding public spaces. The outcome of this effort was to advise city officials and key stakeholders on recommended long-term strategies to increase housing of unsheltered individuals and sustain clean and safe public spaces. The ARC team is met monthly and consists of representatives from 4PA and the city's main operational departments. The ARC team has successfully coordinated very specific and focused efforts to improve city-owned sites and facilities such as Veterans Park, 9/11 Park, Peabody Creek Corridor, and the Olympic Discovery Trail. However, efforts at the broader goals of ARC, such as developing the strategic citywide plans and long-term efforts, have yet to be initiated as these responsibilities may partially overlap with the county's homelessness task force. Additionally, council has yet to formally discuss the number of issues around camping and sanctioned encampments that are the precursor items needed in order to develop those larger strategic and long-term planning goals cited above. Finally, several bills in Olympia are being discussed that could directly impact the city's options regarding camping and sanctioned encampments. The legislature is scheduled to adjourn on March 12th of this year, and in order to fully understand what, if any, impacts the state may have on city policy options, council review of these issues and matters should be held after the legislative adjournment. And as a reminder, in accordance with the discussion that occurred at your meeting on January 20th, meetings of the ARC have been paused until the future work session discussion. So staff is suggesting that to address the broader citywide issues of camping and sanctioned encampments, council as a whole should weigh in on these important matters to provide clear legislative direction to the city manager through a work session to be held on April 7th of this year from 5 to 6 in council chambers. So therefore, tonight's recommendation is to approve the city staff recommendation for the Aligned Response and Care ARC team as detailed in the staff memo. Thank you.
All right. I'll go to Amy first and then Navarro.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to acknowledge that I understand the recommendation related to seeing where things kind of shake out, as HB 2489 did get voted to pass through to the next level of voting. I've never followed a bill so closely. So that should be interesting and may make some city impact. So I don't have a problem with waiting to see where that shakes out for the larger question, for the larger conversation. I do want to just make a couple comments on that to make it very clear to everybody on council and in the public that that has always been the intent of this meeting, is to bring this to the full council for conversation and direction. It's the work that has been done was started to help us know what's actually happening and to try a little bit of trial and error in what's working and what's not working, so that when the group brought it to council, it can be discussed as like this was successful and this was not, so that there was some context in the discussion. So I want to acknowledge that. I also, this is also right, it's my thing, right? So I'm also wanting to express sort of some frustration that it has not already been a council discussion, and that we're waiting again, which I get. But I also think that there is some more urgency to the topic that does not necessitate some waiting. So I kind of wanted to not just have this pass on consent, so that there could be at least a brief conversation, because I think that, well, I guess before I move forward, I want to also acknowledge, I'm sure you guys got some emails on, I know there's been some emails regarding the, and some comments regarding the unpermitted camping in city limits, both in parking lots and in bluff areas specifically. And so I wanted to sort of talk about that as an example, because it did take us about 4 months to address it. And so I wanted to ask the chief if perhaps he could answer a question as far as, or give us a little insight or context on what we need better address these kinds of things that are impacting our environmentally sensitive areas in a more quick fashion, if that makes sense as a question.
So thank you, Councilmember Miller. I think the answer to that question probably is longer and more complex than you were interested in. So the short answer is, based on the tools that we have right now, there's really no fast way to do most of what you're talking about. I mean, things have to be deliberate. We have limited tools in our toolbox, and some things that we would like to do, it's capacity, like getting a city municipal code case into court. If that's something we want to do right now, that's really difficult given the prosecuting attorney's office's interpretation on the contract and actual lack of desire to actually handle those cases regardless, and then our own internal capacity in that area. And they're just basically definitions of certain things, like a city right of way gives us we have some power, but it's not our property. So like what's being considered in Olympia would actually theoretically make that even harder. So the problem generally happens quicker than our ability to deal with it. I mean, that's generally the way this works. The situation you're referring to is a good example. It can expand exponentially much faster than our limited resources can address it. And we did address it with some help from partners, but it travels at a faster speed. So does that cover, like, for now, what you're kind of looking for?
Yes. I guess just for clarity, is there an action or a motion that this body can take that would modify our response at this time?
You're asking for me, my opinion on that? Yeah. That's a pretty big, I don't know that I could just suggest one action or one motion. Again, and I think I'm speaking for any staff that's dealing with this problem, I would pay close attention to what's happening in Olympia in terms of, like you said, you're tracking that bill. It's all about the details, and like AWC has spent a lot of time. I heard it today. They actually fought the bill how many sessions? That would tell you where they think this is going. So it's all about what the details actually say. I learned today in Olympia that possibly an interpretation would be that you couldn't control your right of way at all. I can't imagine a right of way that you can't tell someone, hey, this is a right of way, we need access to it. But so there's a lot of big issues though that I think, again, my opinion, you're just asking me, our two reps, Steve Sterringer and Adam Birnbaum, I would hope have heard from all of you on this. So thank you for asking.
Thank you for doing your best on answering that very big question in a venue that is not supposed to be this larger conversation. And I ask that question because I came with a motion prepared to help to prioritize our responses to focus more on environmentally sensitive areas like riverbanks and school zones or daycare zones. And it sounds to me that even if we all got there, it wouldn't really get us there. So it is helpful information to know. And I'm really looking forward to talking more about this because I love talking about it. I'm also really hopeful that throughout the next couple of meetings that we have where I am not jamming this on the agenda, that we'll have some presenters come to share with you all what's happening out there and what their experiences are, and so that we can have the conversation in April that is really based in our local facts. So I think that's the everything. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you. Navarra. I
have a lot to say, so I will try to keep it brief. I was one of the council members who was there at the initial meetings that eventually led to the ARC team. And one of the things that we had talked about all the way back then was making sure that nobody and not one person had any outsized voice in this committee. And I'm frankly appalled that only one community stakeholder has been attending these meetings, and the rest seems to be city staff. It's clear to me that because of that, the rest of the people who work every day with our unhoused population or recently housed really haven't had that seat at the table in the way that I had thought that we had intended it to be. I think those people include OPCC, the Health Department, the Housing Authority, Serenity House, frankly, the county, because they run the Homelessness Task Force, so county commissioners, one of whom lives here in the city of Port Angeles, Salvation Army, the churches, Taffy. I mean, the list goes on, right? And not a single one of them is talked about as being represented on this committee or being involved per the staff memo that was included for our consideration. I hope that they have been attending, but I think that to me, it is premature to have a discussion when we haven't heard those folks weigh in on this and potential solutions. I also think it's important to note that there are multiple people on this council, including myself, who work with unhoused populations, have historically and currently. And I think that clearly, I think that we can have multiple people working in spaces with homeless folks here in Port Angeles who have different ideas about how to move forward and what the solutions might look like. So I think that with that, I think it is just premature for us to have this conversation tonight. Because of that, I am supporting the staff recommendation. I will make that motion in a second. But I believe that there is substantial value in hearing from our community partners in a consolidated and targeted manner, that over the next few months, we can hear from those community stakeholders, we can hear from community members, we can hear from our unhoused residents who we are talking about, people who are our constituents, who we are talking about criminalizing or potentially further criminalizing. We already have criminalized homelessness in our community. So I think that that we clearly need more information that we are not going to get tonight. I don't think we should get it tonight. And I think that we should have this as a future discussion. So with that, I'm going to move to approve the city staff recommendations for the aligned response and care team as detailed in the memo.
Second.
All right. Anyone else? We'll go to Drew and then John and then back to Amy.
It might be a theme tonight. I'm going to vote no because once again, I was not able to participate in the conversation prior to a motion being made. So I will vote no at this point.
If it's on topic, you can still.
It's on topic, but it's not on the motion itself.
I see.
It is adjacent to it, but it's not on the motion itself.
I think that's probably okay, but I will let you be the judge of that. Anyone else? Oh, John, sorry. Go ahead, John.
So I'm in support because I think there's too much going on in Olympia and it'd be premature to write ordinances if we have to rewrite them. It's a fiduciary thing and I don't want to spend money on staff time rewriting an ordinance that is frankly doesn't follow the law if they pass anything in Olympia. So I think that's one reason I want to do it and I'm vote for that. I also want to just emphasize that it's important that we make strides to help clarify with our community partners what they can do, because I think there's just a lot of unclarity. I met with OPCC. I've seen the Harm Reduction Center. I've talked with Joe Descala. I saw a presentation the other night. I mean, there's a lot of groups that are working in the same space. I just think like we need to, in the interim, make sure that, you know, if we have code that says certain things that's getting enforced, that our parks, you know, like that we're working with those members of our community who are in house to find shelter. I know there's not a lot of it around here, but doing our best that we can. But I do agree that with what Deputy Mayor Carr said, we do need more voice in this discussion. And we need a plethora of diverse perspectives from all these different groups that work in this space. I think the answer is somewhere in between what they all do, right? I think everyone's doing this with a good heart and a good frame of mind, and they're doing it for the right reasons. But I think we need to have all those ideas and voices heard first. That's why I'm for this. And I would like, you know, I like the conversation not to stop until April, but I would like to also, what Councilmember Miller said, hear some presentations, have some community members come and speak to us in an open session where we can all learn and see what they're doing. So I will be supporting the pause for our team so we can have that discussion in April.
All right, I'll go to Mark. I will go back to you, Amy, before we vote. Go ahead, Mark.
I support the motion, and mostly because it has a specific date tied to it where we will have these important conversations that will include the community. I do hope that other council members take up Councilmember Miller's invitation to tour some of the areas that we are talking about. And just a reminder, point in time count is still going on. So you can still have an opportunity to see some of this stuff at the ground level, which I hope all of us come to it with as much perspective as we can gain from actually being out in the field.
All right, I'm going to go real quick and then I'll go back to you. I just want to remind everyone, only 2 people can tour with Amy, or else it is a serial meeting and a violation of the OPMA. So if you are interested in doing some kind of tour, I would suggest you reach out to a staff member. We'll first check with Amy if she's done it with more than Mark. And then if not, you could be her second. Otherwise, because it has direct tie to city business, to council business, OPMA would apply. So you could certainly reach out to a staff member for that. Did you have a clarifying question?
Just a clarifying question. Is it possible for Councilmember Miller to facilitate through another party? Type of similar? Okay, great.
Well, you could do some, yes, it just can't be her. All right. I'm going to support the motion. I appreciate that it has a date. I do think I have not read the language. I've not followed this legislation at all, but I know that AWC is opposing it fundamentally on the grounds of it being preemption, which they unilaterally oppose. But I think it sounds like we're hearing from enough people different information about it that it's probably worth paying attention to. And I think we've heard from multiple council members. In fact, I think everyone who's spoken has said that they're interested in hearing from other community partners who are doing work and making sure that we have a well-rounded bit of information before we meet. And I had one more thing, but I've lost it. So I'll go back to Amy.
Thanks for the second opportunity. I had in my notes that I left at home that I did want to clarify that what we chose to do, because the idea was that the ad hoc committee was going to be short term, was to have liaisons. So actually Ford PA is our liaison to Rediscovery and OPCC because he attends those meetings with them. And I was the liaison with the county through the homelessness task force. So yes, I was the voice, but I was tasked with bringing in the other voices as well. And I wanted to make sure that I shared that. I don't want anyone to be appalled or upset. And also, I guess I'm feeling some things, and I'll leave that out of here, but I also want to just say that the idea is never either or, right? Like, we're not criminalizing, we're not saying it's all enforcement, but the discussion has always been yes and.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could make just one quick comment. Sure. I think it would be valuable, and we don't have to have certainty on this tonight, but I think recognizing the time frame for April 7th is so short, just from 5 to 6 is what we have scheduled right now. So I think it'd be great if council members could take a look at their schedule and see if there's a possibility to have a 4 or 4:30 p.m. start that day. And if not, we may look at having it continue into our regular meeting later that evening.
All right. We shall do that. We might want a reminder email to do that.
We will make that happen.
Thank you. I would like a reminder email to do that, because I will remember right now, but I can't make any guarantees after the meeting. All right. So any further comments or questions? All right. So we have a motion to approve city staff recommendations for the aligned response and care team as detailed in the memo. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
All right, the ayes have it. Carrie, do you need a ticket for that? Okay. All right, that brings us to, thank you, everyone. I-5, criminal justice update. And I'm going to go to Nathan for that.
So Mayor and Council, a relatively brief update for you this evening, but a very important one. As many of you are well aware, we did have a meeting with the county commissioners on the 29th of December, at which time an extension to our 10-year criminal justice contract was discussed and ultimately approved. Fortunately, we have secured and fully executed a 6-month extension relative to that criminal justice agreement to ensure there's ample time to continue negotiations prior to its expiration on June 30th, 2026. In addition to that, we have sent a letter of agreement to the county to clarify outstanding contract items. We've also established regular monthly meetings for negotiations with Colum County, and we continue to have at no less than weekly meetings internally to discuss and prepare for negotiations and to take a close look at the financial implications of any contract moving forward with the county. In addition to that, we are evaluating outside consultant services to assist us with this effort. The timing is quite difficult to achieve, and therefore we absolutely need consultant services. So tonight, we are requesting council support the authorization of a contract for criminal justice services not to exceed $75,000.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go really quickly first. Normally I don't, but I wanted to add a couple of things to Nathan's comments that historically I was appointed as the mayor in the position, not me as myself, to be a council representative in those contract negotiation meetings. And it seems like at this time it might be prudent to do that. In the past, that's what we did. And then we also had a county commissioner join those meetings as well. So I just want to throw that out there for council consideration. This might be a good time to, if you are interested in doing that, it might be a good time to add that to the negotiating team as we move forward. And I'll go to Navarre.
Well, I'm going, based on what Kate just mentioned, excuse me, Mayor Dexter just mentioned, I am going to make the motion to authorize the city manager or their designee to contract for criminal justice consultant services in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and appoint Mayor Dexter to serve as the city council representative to the city's criminal justice negotiation teams and request that the Clallam County Board of Commissioners appoint a commissioner who represents the city of Port Angeles to serve as their representative to the county's criminal justice negotiations team.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Can I
Yes,
speak
to your motion,
briefly?
please do.
Yes, I think it's important that, as Mayor Dexter mentioned, she has been a part of these negotiations in the past. I also think that it's important for the appointee, the representative to this board on council's behalf, really have the weight of that title of mayor. I think that can be very valuable. I also know that Mayor Dexter has served in the past on the Law and Justice Committee and has been, representing our interests around criminal justice for quite a long time. And I think that that's very important. I also wanted to say that I think that while perhaps other council assignments have included an alternate, I think that for purposes of negotiations, it makes a lot of sense just to have those meetings be with one person so that there's continuity, and to make sure that any of those meetings happen when Mayor Dexter and whoever is the county commissioner are able to attend them. So that's why my motion also doesn't include any alternates on behalf of our council, though I certainly know that I think all of us are deeply invested in the future of this contract and our criminal justice services in the future.
Thank you, Navarra. Anyone else? We'll go to Amy and then John.
I appreciate the addition to this motion. I have so many concerns. I think the cost that is being expressed to us that is the cost of the services that we get needs to really be supported with data that we don't have access to right now for whatever reason, because it is such a huge difference, like in the millions. So I think we really need to have somebody strong that represents us. And I appreciate that Mayor Dexter is willing, because I just assume she is now. And I would also feel comfortable with Deputy Mayor Carr being our alternative, but I understand that that's not in the motion. So I appreciate that this is going to happen. I think it's really important. And I just want to express, I guess, my concern, my approach so that it is potentially involved in some of the conversation is I know that from working alongside law enforcement, it is really difficult to be able to continue with any sense of morale and not have moral injury when you cannot bring forth charges that will be accepted by the prosecutor, and whether those are little or not. I think it's important for us to have those services as well. And again, not sure where the cost would come in, but it's really, it's been apparent to me, who is not a law enforcement officer, that we are not getting the prosecutorial services on lower or less on the misdemeanor charges. That's what I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. To me, it's just a math problem, right? $75,000 for $2.5 million. I think, I know there's a lot of comments in the public in the past about outside consultants and all that, but I think it's really important for transparency to have a third party that isn't affiliated with the county potentially or the city to really look at the numbers and give a really transparent overview of what the actual cost is. My whole issue with this is just double billing our taxpayers. They're already paying for those services, so I want to make sure the numbers are clear, that the services they're paying for, we're actually seeing a return, and so I'm in full support of this motion.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Drew, go ahead.
Will we as a council be able to weigh in on our expectations for the contract during any point of this negotiation as well?
I assume that there will be
Be it like
touch
executive
point.
sessions or?
We definitely have to approve it. So
Yes, but sometimes when we get to that point, it's too late to make substantial suggestions and requests.
yeah, I think we would probably go ahead, Nathan. I'm gonna let you speak to that.
So Mayor and Council, we will put together a timeline once we have a consultant on board. We'll bring that back to you. In addition to that, you'll have another opportunity. We have a tentative joint work session scheduled with the county commissioners for the fourth Tuesday in May from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that's your next opportunity, most likely.
Did you have a follow-up? Okay. Did you? Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right, then we have a motion to authorize the city manager or their designee to contract for criminal justice consultant services in an amount not to exceed $75,000 and appoint Mayor Dexter, me, to serve as the city council representative to the city's criminal justice negotiations team, and request that the Clallam County Board of Commissioners appoint a commissioner who represents the city of Port Angeles to serve as their representative to the county's criminal justice negotiations team. Anyone opposed to the motion, please state your opposition. All right, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And I hate to do this when we're so close, but we do have some public comment. So I would like to take another 5-minute break and then come back and finish up with council reports and second public comment period. All right, we're gonna do that. We'll be right back. We'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, thank you all. We will go ahead with council reports, and I'll start to my right this time. You're not ready? I can start to my left. You want me to go to the left? Okay, John, please go first.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So a few things to report. So since our last meeting, I was able to attend with City Manager West, Public Works Director Curtin, Deputy Mayor Carr, and yourself, the City Action Days in Olympia. We had an opportunity to meet with Senators Chapman and Birnbaum on our legislative priorities and concerns we had. I just want to thank them for their time. I want to thank Representative Birnbaum for pulling double duty when, as Representative Theringer's out, he seemed really busy, but he was working hard for us up here on the 24th. So we were able to talk to them about our priorities, support for infrastructure projects. I came away with the big thing that I took away from that is that there's no money this session. That's what they kept telling us. And so, but it doesn't mean we can't still advocate for and get support for things that help our community and our broader region. I also was able to, on the 28th, with a 2-hour notice, mind you, attend a solid waste advisory committee meeting that been appointed to, but I just went there and watched. Things that they're doing there is they're reviewing their comprehensive solid waste management plan this year, which is going to be a big part of their time down there. So it's just important to be part of that conversation as we want to keep rates stable and predictable. And so I'll continue to, as I officially am proclaimed at some point by the commissioners to be part of this committee. That was different. I have to fill out paperwork. I did not do that. I'll look through that strictly through a lens of, are we spending our taxpayers' money correctly? Are we finding ways to make our system more reliable, sustainable through getting rid of redundancies, and like our compactor baler is a good example of that. I was able to watch the Marine Resource Committee meeting. However, since council members is our primary on that, I'm gonna let her talk about that later. And then lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge, because it's been out there, the significant volume of correspondence I've received about the license plate readers, emails alleging technical vulnerabilities and concerns. So I want everyone to know that those are on the public record. I look forward to a formal discussion on it in the future, and I want to thank people for emailing us. I have read every single one of those emails. So I thank you for taking your time to bring your concerns out to us at City Council. So that's my report. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, John. Amy.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think the last 2 weeks I spent trying to apply for all my new assignments. And I said some teary goodbyes to my old ones. So I have not attended any new boards or commissions yet, but I think I'm all signed up to do so. And I think I think it will be next Wednesday. I have quite a few meetings that meet on Wednesday. So I'm working that out. But I'm excited to get started. Like I had mentioned earlier, have been following this House Bill 2489 and have learned a lot that I probably should have known already, being in politics. But that has been really interesting, and I really do encourage folks to take a look at what the amendments have stated. It has gone to the next level. Wanted to remind everybody out there that next Wednesday, everything is on a Wednesday from 2 to 5, is the Serenity House open house for everybody who is interested. And I did get to represent the city at I guess it was like a lecture or training of the Science of Hope, recently offered by I think it was the Clallam Resilience Program. That was really cool. It was not my first learning of this idea where hope is an action and not a emotion. I thought, so I met with, I met there, not on purpose, but a couple of other elected officials of our local governments. And it was really neat to hear that there is a city Memphis, I believe it was, that actually like made a resolution that they are going to be a city of hope. So I'm learning more about what that might look like. I think that's it. Thanks. I look forward to a much more robust report next meeting.
All right. We do too. All right, Navarro, go ahead.
I think John really covered it well about what we did at AWC. It's always nice to be able to represent the city of Port Angeles and also talk with our other partners and attend trainings. And I think there's a lot of value in being able to hear what other communities are doing. Sometimes you're horrified at what other communities are doing, and it makes you feel great about all the great progress we are doing here together. As well as getting to be inspired by all of the wonderful things that other communities do as well. Of course, in addition to lobbying our representatives and advocating on behalf of projects that I think will make our community a better place. Also similar to Amy, I am in that transition period of, getting in on the new stuff and saying goodbye to the old stuff. So I also have not had the opportunity to attend meetings in my new capacity.
All right, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Sort of similar, getting situated in the new committee assignments that I have. I'm getting up to speed with the Shore Aquatic Center and then the Homelessness Task Force meeting today, which, as was mentioned before, paperwork is involved with that. I guess I should have remembered that from 5 years ago. I'd also like to say that we will have all received a lot of the license plate reader emails, and that's something that I continue to gather more information from staff about and to continue to research on my own. So I definitely welcome those emails and anywhere that I can learn more about that. This Friday, I'll be doing a parks ride along, so I'll be learning a little bit more about our parks and facilities department. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Drew.
All right, let me flip over to my 14 tabs that I've got going on at any given time. So I actually was not really transitioning from one thing to another, so I did attend things. The one thing I will note is last Thursday, I went to my first NODC meeting. I'm trying to get more information about that because everything else I do is NODC adjacent. So I think there was this misconception that I actually knew what was going on entirely for NODC. So I'm trying to get more documents from them so I understand exactly what we do, what's going on with that. Then coming up, I do have an Olympic Peninsula Tourism Commission meeting on Thursday, as well as our in-person recompete quarterly stakeholder meeting as well. Amy already mentioned the Serenity House. Going back to OPTC real fast, I will let everyone be aware that March 25th, 26th, and 27th, it's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, is this year's Olympic Peninsula Tourism Summit. Thankfully, that's actually here in town. So I will be attending that as part of my council responsibilities. But we don't have to worry about food or hotel or lodging or anything for me this time around. Actually, neither last time either, because we were still, it was at 7-seater, so it was also still too close. As it has been mentioned several times already, I too received, I checked over 24 emails related to license plate readers. I think I finally found a topic that we have received more emails on than short-term rentals. So I'm mildly impressed by that. That did lead to a discussion that I was able to have with Chief Smith on Monday, so I was able to meet with him. I believe I actually managed to respond to, I'd say like 90% of the emails I was able to shoot a response to, except for the ones that came in today because I haven't had a chance to. And then regarding House Bill 2489, I as an individual have written our representatives and stated that I did not support it as the way it was written when I emailed them about it. I did specify that I was a council member, but I was not acting on behalf of the city council. So they know that I do not speak for us as a city council. That covers everything. And I'm only going to real fast remind the mayor that I think we were going to have an executive session when we were done tonight. So it's not forgotten.
It is not forgotten because I asked Nathan to mention it, so I wouldn't forget. So we'll hear more. We'll go back to that in just a minute. Latricia, go ahead.
So I've attended my 3 normal meetings. The William Shore Memorial Pool meeting was last month, where we had a good conversation talking about, well, we've been updating some of the policies, the pool policies that were there. So we had another section of the policies to comment on, and we'll bring it back again for further discussion. But one of the things too is the pool has been looking at leasing the old school district building for expanding childcare and also including preschool care. But unfortunately, we had not been able to come to, there was a change at the hospital, so we were delayed on an agreement on a long-term lease for that facility. And now our director was talking with them, and it has been brought back to us with almost a market rate lease on that building instead of a low cost lease on that building. And so we are taking a second look at our numbers and we will further that discussion on where we need to go. Because right now, as it was pointed out at that meeting, we do not have a waiting list for childcare for either the summer or summer after school childcare. So we are.
So we do not.
We do not have a waiting list at the pool for the pool program. Now there are other programs, Boys and Girls Club. You also have the YMCA, but the YMCA is expanding their child care program also. What are the reasons why we don't? I couldn't tell you. Our numbers don't go into detail.
I'm sorry, just a point of information or clarification more specifically. When you say we don't have a waiting list, do you mean we don't have anyone on the waiting list, or there literally isn't a waiting list?
No, there's no waiting list because there's nobody who's waiting to be for childcare. And so we had a really great discussion. We actually also had public there. It was really nice to have somebody in that room with us and to provide public comment. So yeah, it was a great meeting. Mike French was voted as chair, and I got voted in as vice chair. So that's going to be. I will continue to serve on that committee. I also attended the solid waste advisory committee meeting. I'm glad to hand that off. But the solid waste management plan is up for review and to be updated. So that's again for the public to keep an eye on. It's how you'll manage better ways to manage solid waste. There's some changes also at the legislative that will impact most likely how we manage our solid waste, also with recycling. But how can we do things better? How can we increase cycling, reduce the solid waste? So that plan is up for discussion. And it sounds like I was looking at the interlocal agreement that we got another 5 years on that agreement going. So I'm really happy there. I was really concerned about that. And then I also attended the Marine Resources Committee meeting, which was the other night, the 26th. And we had a fabulous presentation by Dr. Chris Besant, I want to say his last name was. and he provided a presentation at Squim Bay. It's research on underwater tidal turbines. So this isn't turbine energy wave action tidal. For wave action turbines, this is underneath. So this is underneath on the bottom of the floor, short or on the bottom. And and he presented about animal interaction. And it was really fabulous to see that most of the animals, birds, otter, and also most fish avoided the turbines. They don't move really fast. Actually, some of the fish used it to get predators away from them. So they used it to protect themselves. And I think there was only one, what they call, where they hit. But it didn't kill the fish didn't die or anything like that because it moves so slowly. It was a great presentation. They are going to redeploy it and continue to gather data. This is a project that is funded through grants and donations. It's not funded through any specific private entity for development. And I think it's great that we in this area here in the Olympic Peninsula and the Salish Sea that it's an opportunity for people to do research and development. And he keeps saying that, those are things where you're bringing in the research and development, you're creating jobs, you're creating opportunities for the people who also live there that support those projects. And if you want to see it, go on to the Collin County MRC site and rewatch that meeting, which was January 26th. I also had another MRC meeting with Northwest Straits staff. So I spent a lot of time helping to organize and coordinate the MRC and their activities because I'm the chair. So then also a lot of time with emails and responding back and forth, directing staff over there. So that is my presentation or my update on what I did working for the city. On a side note, personal, I just want to say I did attend the peaceful protest this Saturday in front of Border Patrol facility. And I just want to say thank you to the community members that came out to speak up for what's happening nationwide, for the citizens of Minnesota, the citizens of Maine, the citizens of California, those citizens that are experiencing harms being done to them that we don't see here. But we can, as a group, this collective came together to support that message of that, we appreciate our immigrants that do live in our community and that there should be due process. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I also participated in the Science of Hope, but in a different event. First of all, the speaker presented at Peninsula College for staff on Monday, so I went to that during the day and then went to a dinner. Same host. I sat next to Chief Sharp, and we did a lot of brainstorming while we were there, and both left real excited about all kinds of possibilities. So anyway, I was excited about that. That was a nice opportunity to participate. And there will be potentially some training opportunities for people who are interested in being Hope navigators. And I don't think it's inappropriate to say that I think, there's some hope that, no pun intended, that this expands beyond just the people who've been in the rooms the last few days. Whenever that was last week. Let's see. I also wanted to mention that John and Drew and I, along with City Manager West, were at the Community Awards Gala on Saturday night. And I know that's not a council activity necessarily, but we go representing the city, and it's always, it's a nice segue from Hope because it's a really great opportunity to celebrate just amazing things about our community. And so I was glad to be able to participate in that. As the new chair of Lodging Tax, I was asked, it was suggested that it would be good for me to go to the Tourism Summit, which I would love to do, and I will go to as much as I can. But it is the only 2 days of the entire spring break at Peninsula College where we have over 2 days, about 150 high school students coming up. And it is myself and our lab tech who do activities with those students. And so I would not, anyway, I have a work commitment that will keep me from being there for most of it, but I will go. I think they may leave early enough that I can get down there for some of it. So I will talk to Marcia on Saturday and told her I'd show up when I can. And then the last thing I want to mention is I don't talk about Faro very much, but I think tonight's presentation was a little glimpse into at least, well, really a large part of what that board has been working on for quite a long time. And it's been really fun to be a part of that. So I will stop there and turn it over to Nathan. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add one more thing, and I think it's important. Looking at John, I reminded myself, one of the things to report too, that coordination with the MRC, its committee members, and also other state partners, the group was able to get a derelict vessel off of the Elwha Beach. So again, just pointing out the importance of partnerships and how we can work together to keep our environment, respond to things that show up on our near shore. Another important vital role of the MRC is helping to coordinate that stuff and having volunteers to help out. So thank you for that time.
Thank you. We'll go to Nathan.
Mayor and Council, I have a few things for you this evening. First, want to make sure you all hold February 24th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. for a work session to discuss our strategic plan. Also, it'd be great if you could put a hold on Wednesday, March 11th from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And that would be for the presentation on the state of the city at Field Hall this year. Additionally, Council, we will have a need for an additional closed session to discuss collective bargaining, estimated about 15 minutes following public comment this evening. And I might suggest a 5-minute break right after public comment so that we can capture a quick picture for Association of Washington Cities, who's asked everyone to put together a Seahawks photo, and we do have a flag, and we'll try to get together real quick for a picture. And Council, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Director Curtin, who's going to provide a brief update on the Joint Public Safety Facility.
Thank you, Manager West. Good evening, members of Council. I sent you a communication yesterday put together from the County Administrator, Todd Milkey, and myself. Todd, unfortunately, could not be here this evening. He's actually traveling to Olympia, so he apologizes for his absence, but I didn't feel appropriate to keep him for this update that I'm more than capable of providing you tonight. Regarding the Joint Public Safety Facility, you may recall, we put the project out for bid last fall. And between the holidays, we're really working on getting the contracts on the other documents put together that we need to execute an agreement. During that time, and we actually did not know initially, but it appears that we had a less than responsible electrical subcontractor provide the low bid to actually all three of the general contractors that provided bids on the project. That firm was trying to alter their number during the bid phase pre-contract, which you're not allowed to do. And then ultimately here recently withdrew their bid altogether, which really put us in an awkward position. So, Hanson Construction was the low bid, and then we're faced with executing an agreement with someone that does not have a viable electrical subcontractor in place. we met with both of our legal counsels, the counties as well as ours, just kind of looking at all of our options. Todd and I have put a tremendous amount of work into this really over the last 90 days. And we didn't come to this decision lightly, but after reviewing with legal counsel and just trying to chart our path forward, it was determined that it is really in both of our agencies' best interest to just deny this bid procurement altogether and essentially start over, go back out to bid. The documents are essentially, ready to go. We're going to take another 2 weeks to get advertisements and things of that nature situated, but our intent is to rebid that. I was able to attend and speak at the county commissioners meeting this morning in coordination with Todd. They were also, as you're aware, sent that same communication. They did move in agreement that canceling the bid was in their best interests as well. We're here before you tonight recommending. Well, actually, I don't need you to move, actually, because it's a county procurement. I'm just making you aware and give you an opportunity to ask me any questions that you may have. Again, we tried everything we could to avoid getting here. But with that said, the cleanest, the most transparent way, the best way to protect both agencies is simply to just start over and rebid the project. So with that said, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Amy, go ahead.
I have a quick question that I didn't have earlier, so forgive me for asking now. Are we going to be responsible for any cost to go out to rebid? And does the folks that will have to rebid, is there cost to them as well?
So the only cost that would be incurred, which would get absorbed by the project, is essentially the cost of advertising, pretty minor, to run an ad in the newspaper and our time of managing it. The folks that have already established and submitted bids, those bids are done at their own expense. We do not pay for those. They do not get reimbursed. The procurement that we put out stipulates things like that. Both of our agencies, we can accept the bids or reject them as we deem to be in the best interest of both agencies. So we're not at any risk. That's really one of the reasons why we're doing this. This was the cleanest way that complies with the documents as we presented, and it was just the least problematic way to move forward. So yes, very, very minimal time, unfortunately. This will be another 6 to 8 weeks before we come back with a known. I will add, I am hopeful, as you may recall, last fall, the tariffs, as example, were really up in the air. People weren't really sure where those were going. Not to say that they're great today, but I think they're a little more known. They're a little better understood where we are today related to those than we were earlier in the fall. So I'm hoping that little less uncertainty there might help our situation. And we're going to spend the next 2 weeks. I'm personally, I was on today looking at every general contractor that I can find in the area that might be appropriate. And I'm going to reach out to those individuals and just assert that this project is coming and try and drum up some interest as we go back out for bid.
John?
Just want to say that thanks for making this decision. I think even though it'll delay the project, I think, a subcontractor trying to change the terms before the ink dries on a contract is bad. And so I think that this is the best pathway forward. So I want to thank you and Todd for really going through that and making that decision, because I think it'll be in the best interest, like you said, both parties. So I just wanted to give you my thanks for that.
All right. Then we will go to our second public comment period. And I did say it at the beginning. Never mind. Okay. So we have 3 people on the list. We'll start there. Brady C., Walt, and Thomas, and then we'll open it up for others. And I have at least one hand online. So Brady, go ahead when you're ready. And just a reminder, I think everyone was already here, but name whether or not you're a resident. And if you're in council chambers, the lights will keep track of your 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Bradley Calloway, the Port Angeles resident. First off, I'd just like to thank the council for their prompt response. I'm real excited to see what comes out for the agenda next time, see what all that information is. Obviously, while we're waiting on that report, no interest in talking about hardware and stuff. It's, it is what it is. The hardware companies are what they are. Today, I'm just going to talk about like, what is a license plate reader? Does it work? Is it good? Is it ethical? Does it meet the needs of a community? So, in the last few years, we've seen ALPRs, or automated license plate readers, rising in popularity around the world, and especially in the United States for law enforcement operations. These ALPRs do a lot more than normal traffic cameras do. They track license plates, they track cars. Some of the more crazy ones have this AI, like super tracking stuff, where they track people, where they're going, what their schedules probably look like, all that stuff. Really excessive, really invasive. But when you look at independent research, not the corporate sponsored research, independent journalists, independent researchers, independent data gathering who are not corporate funded, you find that there's almost no correlation between the presence of these automated readers and actual crime clearance rates, actual crime detection, anything in the actual space of what these readers are supposed to be doing. There's no correlation between places that use them and the nearby places that didn't. So the research is generally showing these things are not actually doing anything to help with crime in the areas that they're in. Especially, we had a few research studies out of California with the early adopters in like 2023, 2024, where they had literally next door neighbor cities where one had ALPRs and the other one didn't. And there was just no difference between those two cities and what happened with their crime and what happened with their clearance. We also have several journals that have spoken in length about just what surveillance does to people. We have found from these journals, from lots of research for decades, that when you do this kind of mass surveillance, what happens is you get a reduction in what they call voluntary social interactions. And these voluntary social interactions are what build up community bonds. They're what create something that they call reciprocal altruism, that you probably know better as pass it forward, where one person just helps someone because they're there. And it is these moments of interaction that bind communities together, that make them function. And we know that these kind of mass surveillance systems like ALPRs do nothing but reduce that rate. And by doing so, they break down community bonds. So regardless of what comes out with the hardware for your report, we need the ALPRs out of the city. They just don't help. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Walt. If Walt is here. No Walt. Okay. Is Thomas Ben here? No Thomas Ben. Okay. Then we'll move on. So go ahead.
Just for clarification, this is the second public.
Yes,
Okay.
you're good.
Right.
Second public comment period.
My name is Glenn Barbieri. I'm a city resident. Yeah. Actually, today I went looking for something. You might all recognize this kind of dinosaur. It's called a phone book. Well, the problem is, you see, I have a bookmark. I had it bookmarked the whole time. I walked away here with it. And the page I got to open up to is the section for attorneys. And there's a reason why I started doing that tonight. I thought about something that happened. I mentioned somebody I'm concerned about for about over the last 10 years. Well, I had a conversation with this person, and she asked me point blank how basically watching this happen to her, made me feel. And my answer would probably shock you a lot. And I'll give it to you if you ask me specifically what it was. So you're thinking on that. That was a few days ago. Decided if that was my honest reaction, maybe I should be looking to talk to an attorney. The problem is, you know, I found out there's a lot of attorneys within walking distance of where I'm at. I don't think that a single one of them would be the type I would need to talk to, would pose me a very huge problem. How to communicate about a concern when there is nobody around who handles that concern. And when it comes to homelessness, I could give you right now a 20 to 30 minute presentation on the topic of homelessness in the city tonight without even preparing for it. So my reaction to that mostly was the some of the stuff we discussed, but simply I'm horrified. And there's reasons for me saying that, including some things that I've been talking about aside. For instance, recently I had a conversation with a homeless man who, from his point of view, had been looking for justice for 14 years. I have a living caregiver, 4 years, all that time, legally homeless, zero income, and he had apartment thing let up, deal with through Serenity House, and it fell through. A guaranteed pay, and it fell through. And that's, how do you mess up guaranteed pay for rent?
Thank you very much. Anyone else? We do have one hand online, but we'll finish up in council chambers first. Go ahead, John.
Hi, John Rolson, City Port Angeles. A couple comments. Want to make sure I don't know who the famous and noted financial person is. I remember the quote, it's just important to reduce expenses as it is to look to generate more revenue. I would encourage you as the council and you as the staff to look at reducing expenses. Tonight I heard about the time it takes to review applications with LTAC. But yet I haven't heard anything about how to become more efficient. It was yesterday, I had to do some things online where I had to go through a video training process that showed me how to do something, to process something. I would think that video training might be able to show how to work through this application process to make sure you have all the right forms, et cetera, so that you don't have to repeat it and different people hear different things and interpret questions the different ways if you're consistent in doing it. There's a lot of video training that's out there that you people subscribe to on a regular basis. Try it with the public on some of these things. Councilperson Carr noted that we got to review 30 or 40 applications for marketing. I would have said no to the criteria that you used so that you don't get 30 applications. You've got to learn to say no. You shouldn't have had 30, you should have had 10 and said no a lot quicker. You need to look for ways to be much more efficient. 1,375 hours is what's here. If you had 50 applications, that's 30 hours per application, 27.5. But you only had 30 applications, unless you're counting this and this and this. It's too many hours. Don't always look for funds in the honeypot, tax revenue. It's funny, one of the things I wrote down tonight was, what's the status of the Emergency Operations Center and the 911 Center? Because I hadn't seen anything in the paper. Now I got the scoop. Great opportunity to pull out of the project, build the 911 Center across the street over here at a much reduced cost and size. Certainly like to get a status on the pool situation with the inappropriate funds. Finally, with all the money we're spending, how about working on the traffic signals downtown? They're absolutely horrible. Go through them at nighttime. They're just not sequenced. Go through them at 5 o'clock in the morning. They're not sequenced. It's crazy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Stephen Paleo. Look, I want to be clear from the outset. I don't have a fundamental issue with the idea of charging the LTAC fund an administrative fee. My issue is the magnitude that we're proposing, 12%. I just listened carefully to each and every one of you guys debate this, and not a single one of you asked the most basic question: is 12% reasonable? Let's do some simple math here. 30 to 50 applications, 135,000. You know, we're spending $3-4 grand per application. Some of these are only for $1,000 or $2,000. None of you asked whether this could be done more efficiently. Nobody asked, should Ben and Courtney spend 15-20% of their time on LTAC? When I read their job descriptions, it doesn't suggest that that's what they're going to be spending 15-20% of their time on. Third, and most important, not one of you challenged staff on what is actually normal. I've done the research. I've spoken directly to other cities. Even Serena admitted publicly that many cities do not charge their LTAC fund for administration fees. That fact was completely ignored tonight. So again, my issue is not administration in principle. My issue is really its scale, it's the lack of benchmarking, it's the absence of kind of doing your basic fiduciary scrutiny. Your job really is to ask these questions. Your job is to demand comparisons. Your job is to really separate what's one-time work versus what's going to be an ongoing workload. When none of that happens, you know, I can, and Calvin, I will, question the integrity of the process. You know, this morning I was at PABA breakfast, and Mike French presented something I've never seen a local government do here. He actually showed clear benchmarking. Clallam County versus 10 other counties, sales tax, property tax, population, demographics. It was thoughtful, it was disciplined, it was responsible. Kind of reminded me of a presentation I put out a couple years ago begging for people to do that. And in fact, as you do your State of the City address, I'd love for you to think about showing some of the benchmark. How are we doing versus a Walla Walla, Poulsbo, you name it, Aberdeen for that matter. I would strongly encourage City Council to adopt this same approach going forward. How do other cities do that? What kind of questions do they ask before making these big decisions? I think had that work been done, had you guys benchmarked it, had you questioned assumptions, had you challenged numbers, you would have then upheld your fiduciary duty, and we could make better decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. We have a couple more in council chambers, and then we'll go online. Go ahead.
My name is Morgan Barrett. I'm a PA resident here. Good evening, PA City Council and fellow residents. I'm here tonight to speak out about the development of automatic license plate readers, ALPRs, as you guys all know, within our city and the dangers that they create. ALPR camera systems deployed around our city represent a blurring of the line between security and authoritarianism. While these are in the public space, they're creeping into a gray area of warrantless search without probable cause in clear violation of our Fourth Amendment. I've seen some arguments that we are surrounded by surveillance, like at the toll booths and in the parking lots and in internal spaces of businesses. But in these cases, we are opt into these by choosing to shop at these businesses or use the convenience of a nonstop toll collection system. We do not have the ability to opt out of these camera systems, and we never agreed to be tracked and profiled by them. The decision to deploy these devices was made in backroom deals without the clear approval from the citizenry under surveillance. ALPR services are invasive and ripe for misuse. These are not simply systems that are used for historical data, but are instead used to track movements of all Americans, regardless of innocence or guilt. The data they collect without our consent can be easily misused and even modified to fit a narrative. This data is collected on everyone, and the systems create profile data on anything they record. These databases are closed off from the public, but the data is not secure, nor can it be trusted given the complete lack of transparency and accountability from the key holders of this data. We are told this information is securely stored, but security researchers have proven this statement to be at best misleading and at worst outright false. Typically, this data is stored off-site in a data center far, far from here, or data protection laws may not align with our standards. I would like to know what level of access has been allowed to this data across state and federal law enforcement, as well as third-party businesses like Palantir, and what protections the city has put in place to prevent this data from being abused. I would like to know what data is being collected in these dragnet operations and where this data is stored, what security protocols are in place to protect this data, and how often these security protocols are audited. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the council members here that have brought this subject to matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak in council chambers? Okay, we have one online. Jim, when you are unmuted, we'll make sure we can hear you, and then I'll start your time.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
I can. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I've been watching all night, and I would like to make a comment regarding the April 7th meeting work session for the council. I understand that this is going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, but this is a must. I'm surprised at the lack of sense of urgency that I see from the council versus what I'm hearing on the street and from business owners. So I'd like to challenge the mayor, Mayor Dexter, a little bit to establish some clear goals and objectives, deliverables, results, expectations for that work session. What is the purpose of that work session? What do you want to get done there? I would urge you to focus on the simple encampment section. Homelessness, when you look at it, and I can't remember which council member sort of showed or imagine the spectrum of the homelessness effort. When you begin to look at it, it's too big. The issue we have right now is about encampments and what the city's responsibility and what the city is going to do and what actions it's going to take. I assumed the role as the chairman of the Waterfront District for 2026, and I have heard some horrifying experiences that those businesses have been experiencing with people camping on the streets and that. So I would urge you as council members to go talk to Mary Sue French at Cable Arts, go talk to Swain's, go talk to the people at the Wharf, go talk to Johanna Barty that owns the Harbortown Mall. Go talk to Sam Grello, the executive director of the Waterfront District. Go talk to Marty Marchand, who owns the Lincoln Theater, and hear what those people are dealing with. So in preparation for our meeting, but again, Mayor Dexter, I hope you can set some clear expectations, objectives, and goals for your public work session on April 7th, and I look forward to joining you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, anyone else? Okay, well, thank you all for coming this evening, and we will see you on the 17th. And now we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will go back into closed session regarding collective bargaining for 15 minutes. So before we go, I'll announce what time will be done. So if you're joining virtually, the meeting will stay open because we're going into a closed session, but there will not be any action to follow. I'll just come out and say that the meeting is adjourned. So you're welcome to sit through here, but we will be adjourning to the PST conference room for that part of our meeting. Yes. Okay. So We have concluded our executive session, and as noted previously, there is no action, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.